good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are. This is myself, Richard Butler here. We're going to be breaking down a bit about Black Business Fundamentals. First off, I'll just let you know what Black Business Fundamentals is and why it was created. It was essentially created to introduce people into different and new ideas for Black businesses, with the idea to expand on how Black businesses are doing business, how they're growing, how they're developing, using all the different business fundamentals that are required. What the service that he actually provides is education and kind of like a form of mentoring in a way where it's discussing certain business topics, certain business ideas that can expand on what people actually understand is required to grow and expand, develop and become industrial in a business environment. This is something that we're going to be discussing further throughout the actual shows that we're going to be doing. The shows will be taking place over the year through team discussions, group discussions, online discussions, and this is how we are going to kind of introduce and integrate some of these ideas into you, the audience, whilst we're actually running the show. Now, this show itself is called A Message to Black Business Owners, which is slightly different from Black Business Fundamentals, who are running the show. The reason why the Message to Black Business Owners was actually created was more about the discussion aspect of it. It's about bringing the business owners to the platform, to this space where we can openly discuss some ideas and some topics. And the fundamentals aspect is actually the educational part, where you'll actually learn specific subjects which are going to help you develop your business. I have with me one of the many teachers that we'll be working with over the period of time, Vonley Joseph, who's a businessman, an academic, a master of sales and business in many aspects. He'll give himself a full introduction, but we've worked together for many times and I've learned a lot from him. And I'm sure that you will learn a great deal from what he has to show. So over to you, Vonley.
Okay, good day. I'm just going to cover the topic today, just to introduce you to the micro business to industrial mindset. And particularly in the UK market, we've over the years done reasonably well in terms of the people, in terms of our development towards business growth. From the high street examples such as barbershops, hairdressers, bakeries, a few butchers here and there. So we've done reasonably well. We've been quite significant in terms of market trading, the stores, indoor markets, and so on across the clothing industries, but mainly as a buyer to sell. That's been the focus in a lot of the work that we've done. Although there have been some significant businesses, companies such as Dark and Dryden, the first black millionaires in the UK back in the 70s, 80s, to the modern day, when we're looking at companies like Dalgety Teas and so on, who are doing phenomenally well on a global basis. But overall, the economy that we are driving from the UK as a people is primarily micro-driven. And what I really want to address today is the mindset of that. Now, when we set up a business, a lot of the time we will think, where can I get the product from? And then a lot of the time we're looking for some sort of wholesaler to purchase those goods from. 9 times out of 10, that wholesaler is going to be based in the UK. And most of those wholesalers are not owned by us. They really support our communities. So what we're finding is, although we have an avenue to get our supply chain, that money itself is not being reinvested back. So when we come to market, technically we're working as grassroots distributors for those wholesalers. And my argument is there's a lot of manufacturing taking place within the African and Caribbean diaspora. We just need to tap into it. And if we can tap into that, we will find that the market there is quite a phenomenal market. But yet still, a lot of those companies have more or less not penetrated the UK as such. So the focus that I'm going to be taking going forwards and pressing time and time again is to get the micro businesses in the UK connected with companies within the diaspora and start trading together. So we create a level of macro thinking. So we're thinking globally rather than micro. So instead of thinking, well, I can purchase from a local supplier or even go on Alibaba and buy products, which is supporting the Chinese economy. The focus that I want people to be taking is to be focusing more on thinking about production in Africa. Can I source those products in Africa or the Caribbean? And what's the position in that? Can I bring them to market? And if not, how do I go about doing that? How do I get that done? That way we're able to keep our income within our community. And that's how wealth is created. Wealth is created by maintaining your finances within your own community or economy. So, of course, we have a wider economy where we share with all different cultures and so forth. But what you'll find is that we are very much engaged with spending our disposable income into other cultures and so on. And it's very rarely that we invest back in our own. And I understand we have things like the Black Pound and so on. And I'm not here to discuss that today, but I'm happy to have a debate on that at any time. But the significant thing that I would, in my opinion, I would say is that, when you're spending financially, you want to spend and know where you're spending it and want to spend it so you know it's being reinvested back into your community. And within that way, you're maintaining the wealth within your community. And that's something we really need to focus on. So it's not just about finding a retail shop. It's thinking, where does that retail shop buy their goods from? And where does i.e. the wholesaler, where does the wholesaler have their goods manufactured? And when you can identify that within that supply chain or from the production coming right through, that it's staying within our community, that gives us a level of strength and economic growth. So this is really what I'm looking at. I'm looking at that micro mentality. Why is it that we generally will be sellers and not really producers? And I'm saying that, especially in the UK, it's very important that we start thinking in terms of production and controlling a production base, even if that production is not taking place in the UK, but we have the connection to that production base, and therefore we can then tap into the distribution and control the markets on the ground floor. That's how you seize markets, because you're able to control that market. Once you're able to penetrate it and you have the production to support the demand in that market, you're then able to seize the market share and really go about it somewhat aggressively, depending on the capacity to produce. And that should be scalable. And these days, tapping into more capacity once you've strategically planned for it should be a done deal. Really, you should be looking at scalable models and creating jobs, creating wealth within your community. So what I'm looking at is more the backward integration rather than the forward integration, which is buying from wholesale and going and selling. I'm more thinking, well, hold on, we can deal with that. We're doing that reasonably well. How do we go about taking advantage of the manufacturing base that we have, quite a significant manufacturing base, although it may not be in the UK? How do we connect to those companies to bring their produce here? And if the projects are not up to scratch, how do we get them to improve their quality? How do we feed them that intelligence to raise the quality and the standards so that they can be competitive within the UK, and therefore we give us a product that we can bring to market to seize market share. So that's the focus where I'm looking at. So it's a micro to macro initiative, and really looking at reshaping the mindset into a more industrial focus. So when we're talking about our economics, I'm looking at it from an industrial mindset, and really developing that mindset so where we have a level of industry. So we're not just seen on the high streets, paying rents to landlords and so on. We're actually taking ownership. And ownership is the key. When we're supplying our own markets, a lot of people are saying that that a lot of people won't buy our products and so forth if we put them out there. The years it's taken to get into notable supermarket brands, it's taken a phenomenal amount of years for that to happen, although we've been supplying those brands for a long time. So why is it that we haven't positioned ourselves to supply and serve our own markets and make that sustainable? Why is it that we can still go to brands that really do not represent our so-called dietary requirements and give us the provision, the width and the provision that we deserve in terms of our products? But we're prepared to still invest in those brands. So let's start thinking ahead and start thinking about brands that we can identify with, brands that are going to develop not only our economy, but our agricultural components as well. With our commodities. How are we going to start looking at, even in the service sectors? We've got some big service sectors growing now, especially in the UK with creatives. But I hear a lot of people are going to China to have manufacturing done. Why are you going to China? Can you not get manufacture done in Africa or the Caribbean or even the diaspora in South America? Is that an impossibility? Why haven't you thought about that? And if it's the case where you're saying the quality is not up to scratch, then you be the forerunner in that. Stipulate that what that quality should look like, and teach them standards. Because if we're not going to start investing in our own, then we're pretty much walking in a bubble, and that bubble will burst. And to me, it bursts time and time again, and we just keep blowing bubbles. So we need foundation. So that's really where I'm talking about: an industrial mindset with the right type of foundation, the right focus, and we're looking to underpin that educational process and create a real economic model that has solutions that's going to create wealth. And within that wealth then can be distributed and redistributed to create jobs within the diaspora. So we're not requesting jobs, we're providing jobs. And that's the key. We're not requesting education, we're providing a level of education. We're not requesting enterprise and funding and so forth from enterprise hubs. We're providing the financials for that growth to happen. So it becomes a self-sustainable model. That's the objective, and that's the real focus that we're looking at. I'm tired of thinking or within perspectives where we have to be reliant on handouts. And that seems to be the case, unfortunately, as it stands at the moment. And we rely on other people's generosity into our time, especially around this Black Lives Matter issue. You're seeing a lot of people now more receptive towards black businesses. And my argument is, was that on merit? Was it that you want to tick off the Equalities and Opportunities Directory? I'm really not one that is going to be ticking off Equalities and Opportunities Directory. So you found it would be somewhat controversial, and but it would be undiluted. And the focus is for us to be self-sufficient. And my view is, when you're relying on other cultures to provide self-efficiency, the well will run dry, without a doubt. And you're reliant on someone to provide food. And it's the old saying, give a man a bowl, he eats for a day. Teach a man to fish, he eats for a lifetime. So that's the focus that we're going to be doing. We're going to be teaching you how to fish and how to prospect in markets and link you up and encourage you to link up and make these things happen. So for me, I'm going to leave it on that note, and I'm going to pass you back to Mr. Richard Butler, who will round up.
Yes, thank you very much, Ronnie. One quick question. I just wanted to not to reveal too much, but what do you see is the kind of key to create the economic model that you spoke about? What are the key kind of 1, 2, 3 elements that would need to be put in place?
Okay, I think your camera's jammed there, Mr. Butler. But the key elements, you say the economic models.
For backward integration.
Are you talking about? Pardon me?
For backward integration, what are the things that would...
Well, keeping it simple, we need to start thinking when I'm buying a product, and we start to create a market. For instance, if I start, I may start buying from a wholesaler, and I may start selling, example, 50 units a week. But as soon as I get to a pace where I'm probably turning over 200-300 units, I need to start thinking about production. And I know I've spoken to a lot of businesses, micro business over the years, and they're saying, "Oh, I'd like to make this, but I can't get it." Well, let's start thinking about how do I prospect to get that product produced within the diaspora. It may well be being produced already.
So what you're saying is part of the change is a change of mindset.
Absolutely, a change of mindset, but also it's not about speculating; it's about stipulating. All right, we need to stipulate, and what I mean by that is, it's no sense saying, "Well, I'd like to have it made here," but whatever. What by any means. That's the reality. It's not. I would like to. It's I have to have it made within the diaspora, and I have to find a company. And if a company doesn't reach the qualities, I have to get that company to come up to a particular standard. Because it's for the economic, social and economic well-being of my people. So that's the reality.
So people like in Nigeria, for example, they're making cars now. So the manufacturing efficiencies and means to creation are actually there.
Absolutely. All right. We have the know-how and we have the capabilities. And it's really tapping into that. And, in textiles, certain countries are stronger in other areas than others, but, you go across Africa, textiles, agriculture, but very good at providing raw materials, whether it be in Africa, the Caribbean, South America, so on. We're very good at doing that. What we're not very good at doing is marketing the products that we're producing, i.e. the agro-processing, bringing products, say, from agriculture and processing them to a standard where they can be marketed globally and compete with the existing brands out there. Although a lot of those existing brands out there are purchasing the raw materials from us. And if you look locally, within local economies, you'll find, for instance, something like cocoa, you can go to Africa or the Caribbean, you find local cocoa brands. Those brands are not being marketed globally. And this is where we have an issue. They're okay in those local economies, but why is it that we can produce a cocoa, produce a local brand, but we're not able to go and export that brand globally? All right, and that's down to people outside the diaspora to create those markets, to really expand it, and people within it as well. But what I'm saying is, we are a market in itself. For instance, in the UK, so we should be looking when we want to buy cocoa. Let's look for the channels of distribution we can tap into to get our cocoa that's produced within our own economies. Why are we going to brands out there, notable brands out there that make chocolates and all these kind of things, and they don't produce any cocoa? And those brands are then producing that, and you go into those economies. I can go in the Caribbean and I'll see brands that are produced outside of our economies, and they've been selling for twice the price. And it's our raw material, and the standard and the quality sometimes isn't there. I know when I drink a cocoa, either in the Caribbean or in Africa, I know that cocoa tastes like cocoa. All right, so it's really understanding the dynamics and getting that right, and really starting to tap in and encourage those brands to understand there's markets outside of their local economy. Because remember, their local economy can be quite vast as well. If you think of places like Africa as a continent, it's got a lot of people. So a lot of those companies are able to challenge in their local markets. They're there, and a lot of them are doing reasonably well. What we need to do is get them to understand, well, to really challenge the brands, the global brands. You need to think globally. So we need to encourage them to start positioning themselves globally.
I see what you're saying. The in the diaspora markets, they're happy to market to their own community because they have a lot of numbers. Whereas in, say, for example, England, where maybe they don't have as much numbers, or maybe the market has been pushed to its edges in their national markets, they've now looked at other locations, other countries, and they've created that capacity to distribute in other countries, including our own diaspora. Whereas they're still developing within our own diaspora and not really necessarily looking at their markets to actually expand into. So it's the breakdown of that kind of. So it's about integrating and filling the boxes, filling the spaces, so that we can expand into extra markets and other external markets. Excellent. Well, listen, thank you very much for breaking that down to us. It was a great pleasure to have you here on A Mission to Black Businesses. We will be back with some more. And again, this is Black Business Fundamentals bringing you A Mission to Black Business Owners. We will be back again next month with another show where we can cover this area and other areas that are associated with it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.